My name is India Carney. I'm based in Los Angeles, and I'm a singer, songwriter, and producer. Growing up, my dream was always to be a solo singer. So I got into singing really young. I was about 4 years old. I started taking flute lessons and joined the community choir. I was singing in church shortly after and doing a lot of musicals with them as well. And I remember around 9 years old, I was starring in a production of Annie. And there was one day during rehearsal where I was just belting out this note and everything made sense. I felt so comfortable on stage. I have to be a performer. I started taking my singing seriously almost immediately after, because at 9 years old, I was about to graduate from elementary school and go to middle school. And at the time, there was a middle school, Mark Twain, out in Coney Island that was a gifted and talented school attracting students who were interested in the arts. And so I went as a vocal major, and that's where I started becoming really serious about all of it. I did all the talent shows. Actually, I remember my first talent show. So this is back when I used to binge American Idol every night at dinner with my mother. And on American Idol, you can audition with anything, and then you change your song later. And so I auditioned for my first talent show with the national anthem, thinking I could change it later. And for whatever reason, they wouldn't let me change it. So when I opened my first talent show, that was my act, the national anthem. And then I went to a performing arts high school, LaGuardia Arts High School in New York City. I went as a vocal major as well. I continued doing musical theater and honestly, anything I could get my hands on. During high school, I got my start as a songwriter as well. I went on to college. I was doing pre-college programs at Manhattan School of Music, and then moved on to college where I got my bachelor's in operatic voice from UCLA, which brought me out to Los Angeles, and I'm happy I'm still here. It's not easy to conduct a career in music, especially as a singer, but I think from a very young age, my mom instilled in me the idea that you can have what you want. And if you allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to find it, then you'll be happy and satisfied. Somehow, I haven't had many struggles in the arts. I think perhaps the biggest struggle has been getting past myself, which is a struggle for most artists. But luckily I haven't had to work in industries outside of the arts. I've always been in music to some extent. And I feel very fortunate to have been able to do that because that's kept me focused as well. But has it been an easy journey emotionally? No, but luckily I love it and the passion keeps me going, especially right now in my life. It's been really hard emotionally, choosing to believe in yourself every day. But I've learned the more I do it, the more it's worth it. And hopefully I will be able to live out my dreams doing it forever. The pandemic was very hard for me, as it was for most people. As a musician, all the live concerts were canceled. There wasn't a lot of studio work happening either, and that's what I relied on. I wasn't relying on my solo artistry as much then as I am now. And it was hard for me because, I was out of work for the majority of 2020. Luckily, when I started to get the most nervous, that's when I got my first gig out of the pandemic again. And I was like, oh, thank God for this. And then for me, lucky for me, I don't know how, but the fall of 2020 was an incredible season for me work-wise. I started taking on new positions than I had before. I started doing a lot more vocal production and vocal coaching. I had been teaching for a long time privately, but I hadn't done so at the professional TV level. And that's when I became a vocal coach at American Idol and a new TV show called Alter Ego. I was able to maintain a positive mindset during the pandemic because I had no other choice. I can't imagine allowing myself to stay in bed all day, sad about all the opportunities that I've lost due to negligence. And not that that's not an okay thing to do, it's just something I've done before. And in this phase of my life, I was like, I can't do that again because it doesn't work for me. I'm a huge empath. In fact, all the race relations, everything that was happening in 2020 in America and abroad really got to me. And that's why I wrote my song Human that I finally released in 2021. It came at a time where I was not inspired to create music. I was doing a lot of cover work, but I didn't have anything to say of my own. And after a while, I was like, India, you thrive on writing your own music, so what are you gonna write? And after weeks and months of being so impacted by everything I was seeing on the news, I was like, I have to write about it. And I'm happy I did. I love music, and music was able to take me out of that headspace. I have felt like giving up a bunch of times. I felt like giving up after I finished The Voice, because after I was done, I lost half my follower count. I didn't have as much engagement. You don't leave with guidance from these things. I was so grateful to have done The Voice. I would recommend it to anybody. It was a good time for me, and it helped me find my voice. I think as fast-paced as everything was, I didn't have time to be a perfectionist like I always have been. And that got me a bit closer to who I am as a singer. So I'm incredibly grateful to The Voice for that. They treated us like royalty. You really felt like you were an artist being taken seriously for like the first time in your life. But did anything come of that? For me, not in the way that I thought. And I'm sure a lot of people who've gone through the reality show circuit, I'm sure a lot of them feel the same way. So after that show was done, I was booked for the year after, but as the year started to die down, I also did. My self-confidence started to die down because I didn't know how to bring the engagement back up, bring people back to my channel. And it was really hard. I did feel like giving up. There were a couple times that year I felt like giving up. There were a couple times the year after I felt like giving up. I think it's necessary to have some dips because it reminds you of why you love it so much in the first place. When you get out of that feeling, you're reminded of how much you have such a passion for it. So right now I'm in an interesting part of the process of pursuing my dream. It's interesting that I'm doing my interview right now because this is a transitional period for me. I let go of a lot of things in my life over the past few months, and it was really hard because I'm super loyal and I take commitment so seriously. But I think I've realized that I've allowed myself to be taken advantage of in a bunch of areas in my life over my whole life. But now, for some reason, 28 is a good year for me, and the year I decided to not accept those things anymore. But that doesn't make the decision any easier. I don't have a consistent income like I used to, but with all of this newfound downtime, I have to choose to believe in myself. I have to choose to use this downtime as an opportunity. I've certainly experienced my fair share of discrimination on a bunch of different accounts, being a woman, being a person of color, even being a singer, and all of those things all together. It's not a great mix for the music industry in terms of respect a lot of times. But I never really let it stand in my way. I really think the biggest hurdle for me has just been believing in myself and staying confident, learning myself to know what I want so that I don't end up in those situations anymore. Because a lot of that came from me just not knowing myself. And so I would blindly say yes to things and then regret it 2 years later, but I'm stuck in it. So where am I really gonna go? But now that I've kind of freed myself up from those things, I have to spend time learning myself more so I don't make those mistakes. These issues and obstacles that come through life are just temporary. Half of them aren't even personal or have anything to do with you, but the constant is you and your sanity and your heart and your soul. So I think everybody has a duty to honor that because once you feel unstoppable, sky's really the limit, and those obstacles aren't obstacles anymore. I think an accomplishment that I'm most proud of was landing a placement in American Express's holiday campaign in 2020. That was one of the big things that happened that fall for me. I got a really big gig, and then on that gig, I got a call from my manager who was like, hey, they're looking for an a cappella rendition of Auld Lang Syne. Can you do it? And I was like, I'm sorry, for a commercial, and they want a trio version, vocal produced Auld Lang Syne. Of course, that's like one of the few things that I can do right now. I was so excited. I whipped up like 3 different versions to send to them. And I was like, okay, you asked for an a cappella version. I'll give you that. I'll give you a version with strings and a choir too. And I'll also give you a version with, maybe it was piano or something. And I got the gig. And that was like, I could almost tear up thinking about it now, because it was one of those big moments where I chose to take myself seriously, and it really paid off in a huge way. I think the dream is always evolving, but for whatever reason, I like being in control. I like performing art that stems from within. So in this case, it sounds like that means being a solo artist. And what's interesting is I've been living the dream. I've been able to support myself as a singer in Los Angeles, miles away from home, for years. Most people can't do that. I honestly don't even know how I did, but I'm grateful that I was able to, because I've always been at least in very close proximity to where I want to be for as long as I can remember. Now I'm realizing, okay, but this isn't it. I really want to be touring my own music and be able to pay my musicians what they're worth and all of that good stuff. I assume that'll take another while, maybe like, I don't know, 5-10 years or something. So we'll check back when I'm like 40 and see what the dream is then. The Dreamer app is really cool because you get to connect to a network of other talented people who either share the same dreams or don't, but either way, there's always something that brings us all together. It's really cool to have that community, especially for those moments when you need that support. To the younger person who is interested in a career in the music industry in any form, I would just say that there's space for everybody. Art is very subjective, and therefore there's something for everybody. There's somebody who's going to really take well the way you want it to your music. And I hope that for you. And I think that you can do that if you continue to nurture your talent, study other people, go to school, ask questions, perform in safe settings where you can practice, but also perform and get that experience. Take yourself seriously, absolutely. If you know you have a gift and you have something to share, share it. And just keep following your heart in that way. And I think you'll get to where you want to be. So if you want to stay connected to what I'm up to, I am very present on Instagram. I love Instagram. Of course, once I understood Instagram, then TikTok came. But for now, I'm still on Instagram at India_Carney. I'm India Carney, and you just watched my Behind the Dream.